The Badge and the Beast, a Northwood nightmare. The monsters aren't always in shadows or lurking beneath a child's bed with fangs glinting in the dark. Sometimes they stride in broad daylight, cloaked in the authority of a blue uniform and a polished silver badge, their power sanctioned by the very society they are meant to protect. And sometimes, fueled by the mundane boredom of a Thursday morning, they wield that power to conjure your deepest fears into horrifying reality. This was the chilling truth Isabella Bella Rossi Jones confronted. The ancient oak, a silent sentinel of Redwood Creek, chafed against her back, its rough bark a torment. Her wrists screamed, raw and burning, bound by the unforgiving bite of cold metal cuffs that cinched them behind a massive trunk, rendering her as helpless as a snared animal. Standing over her, Officer Phil Granger, 40, wore a smile that twisted his face into a mask of cruel amusement. He spared a glance at the younger officer beside him, Kevin Parrish, a silent, uneasy accomplice. "See, Parrish." Granger's voice dripped with self-satisfaction. "This is how we spice things up in Northwood. A little survival training for our nature-loving tourists. Let's see if she can untie herself before the neighborhood's hungry wolves come out to play." Their laughter, harsh and devoid of warmth, echoed through the serene forest, dying into a silence far more terrifying. Then, with an unnerving calm, they turned and strolled through the rustling leaves, back to their patrol car, leaving Bella to the suffocating grip of fear and despair. How could a private citizen, in a peaceful national park, be subjected to such barbarity by the very individuals sworn to protect her? And what unimaginable reckoning awaited these officers once they discovered their sick prank had ensnared the most powerful woman in the Northwood Police Department? A bright morning dims. Let's rewind just a few hours. Thursday dawned with the promise of perfection for Bella, 32, a freelance graphic designer cherished by friends and her beloved husband. The sky was an unblemished blue, and the crisp autumn air, rich with the scent of damp earth and pine, filled Redwood Creek State Park. For Bella, these solo excursions into nature were more than a hobby. They were vital to her creative pulse. She was crafting a new brand identity for the Green Near Earth Fund, a local nonprofit dedicated to forest preservation, and needed to draw inspiration directly from a vibrant tapestry of the woods. The forest stillness, the rich palette of leaves, the dance of light and shadow, all raw materials for her art. Dressed in a moss-green tracksuit, her dark brown hair neatly tied back to reveal a keen forehead and hazel eyes perpetually alight with curiosity, Bella carried only essentials: water, an energy bar, and her smartphone, a tool for capturing fleeting moments of inspiration. With the healthy glow inherited from her Italian father and a radiant smile, Bella exuded youth and vitality. She hummed a cheerful tune, pausing occasionally to photograph an unusual mushroom clinging to a decaying log or a vibrant purple wildflower stretching towards the sun. A profound sense of peace enveloped her, a feeling of absolute safety in her own city. But this tranquility, like the morning mist, was about to be brutally torn apart by uninvited guests. The predators in Blue Not Far Off, on a forgotten dirt track, reserved for patrol vehicles, Officer Phil Granger, 40, stifled a frustrated yawn. He loathed his morning shifts, especially patrolling the sprawling, monotonous park. A 15-year veteran, Granger's seniority had not fostered wisdom, but rather a deep-seated laziness, bitterness, and resentment. He felt marginalized by the department's new direction, particularly under Chief Jones, a younger black man implementing community relations reforms Granger dismissed as soft. His typical routine involved finding the park's most remote corners, switching off his radio, and sleeping away the day. Beside him sat 23-year-old rookie Kevin Parrish, a raw recruit just 8 months out of the academy. Parrish was a fledgling idealist, yet too shy and desperate for acceptance to challenge Granger, whom he saw as both senior and bully. He often chose silence, telling himself it was the path of least resistance. "This is so crushingly boring," Granger grumbled, tapping an irritable beat on the steering wheel. "Nothing happens out here. Stray dogs and cheating lovers. What a spectacular waste of my talents." As if in direct defiance of his complaint, rounding a tree-lined bend, they spotted her, a lone woman on the trail, bent over, engrossed in photographing something on the ground. Granger's dull eyes gleamed with a sickly flicker. "Look, apprentice," he nudged Parrish. A lost little lamb. Doesn't look like she's from around here. Let's see if we can stir up some fun. Granger slammed on the brakes, the crunch of gravel under the tires making Bella look up in surprise. 2 officers emerged from the patrol car, walking toward her. At first, she smiled, assuming a routine check, perhaps a friendly reminder about park safety. A descent into discrimination. Hello there. Granger began in a patronizing drawl, his eyes raking over her from head to toe in a look of superior appraisal. Walking alone in the woods. Quite dangerous. Heard reports of coyotes in this area, you know. Hello, officers, Bella replied politely, unfazed. I'm quite fine. Thank you for your concern. I'm very familiar with these trails. Her confident response and calm demeanor did not sit well with Granger. He desired fear, subservience. He scanned her healthy tan, her dark hair, the subtle lines of her face. In his narrow, prejudiced mind, a judgment quickly solidified. Familiar, he sneered, an unpleasant sound. You don't look like you're from around here. Where exactly are you from? California? South of the border? He winked at Parrish, who offered only a nervous, wry smile. Let me see your ID. Bella felt a jolt of surprise at the officer's aggressive tone, but she strove to maintain her composure. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't typically carry my wallet when I hike. It's inconvenient, but I have my phone. I can show you a picture of my driver's license. I'm Isabella Rossi Jones, a resident of Northwood. The name Rossi only fueled Granger's prejudice. He let out a contemptuous, derisive laugh, turning to Parrish, who stood uncomfortably silent, avoiding Bella's gaze. Hear that, Prentice? No wallet. Classic excuse. And Rossi must be one of those illegals hiding out in the woods. We've done a great job here. He turned back to Bella, now with undisguised animosity, drawing out each word as if speaking to someone mentally deficient. Listen, girl, we need to see real papers, not photos. Understand? By now, Bella knew this was no ordinary encounter. A cold wave of dread rose in her stomach. This was blatant abuse of power, undisguised discrimination. Officers, I believe there's a serious misunderstanding here, she said, her voice strained but firm. Your attitude is unacceptable. My husband is... Your husband, Granger interrupted rudely, waving her hand away as if swatting a fly. Don't bring your husband into this. He's probably some bum, right? Or an illegal like you. Don't try to scare me. He gestured to Parrish with a toss of his head. She's not cooperating. Maybe we need to teach her a lesson about respecting American law. Bella recoiled, her heart pounding. You have no right to do this. This is harassment. I will report this. Report. Granger laughed, a mirthless, chilling sound. I have the authority. I have the badge. What do you have? He lunged forward, grabbing Bella's arm in a grip as tight as an iron vise, sending a shudder of pain and terror through her. He began to drag her, pulling her off the familiar path, deeper into the dense forest where no one would see. Parrish, his face pale with worry, hurried after them, his conscience screaming, but fear choking every protest. What are you doing? Let me go. You're breaking the law. Bella screamed, struggling in vain against the larger man's strength and the other's cowardly complicity. They dragged her about 50 yards into the woods, to a secluded spot swallowed by dense undergrowth. They stopped before the ancient, gnarled oak, a silent witness to countless seasons, now poised to observe a crime. Granger shoved Bella hard against the tree trunk. He pulled a pair of shiny handcuffs from his leather holster, turning them over with a smirk. Today's shift is boring, he said, savoring the terror in Bella's eyes. Let's play a little game. We're going to cuff you to this tree. If you're smart enough, you'll get out before dark. Consider it a free survival test from the Northwood Police Department for uninvited guests. Bella was consumed by terror. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening in 21st century America. Are you insane? This is kidnapping. This is a felony. You will pay for this, I swear. Granger laughed again, his laughter scattering nearby birds. Her defiance only amused him. Payback? Who's going to believe a like you? Your word against the word of two brave police officers on duty. Good luck. He turned to Parrish, his voice sharp with command. Now, apprentice, hold her hands. Don't just stand there like a statue. Or, do you want to be cuffed with her? The threat worked. Parrish, trembling, stepped forward, grasping Bella's arms firmly as Granger twisted them behind the tree trunk and locked the cuffs with a dry, ominous click. The sound was the slamming of a door on Hope, a glimmer in the gloom. And so, we return to the opening scene. Granger and Parrish vanished, their laughter fading, leaving Bella shackled to a tree, alone with the eerie silence of the forest and the suffocating monster of despair. Tears of rage and fear welled in her eyes, streaming down her cheeks, but only for a few seconds. Bella was strong. She was David Jones's wife. She knew crying and panicking wouldn't help. She had to think. She had to act. She took a deep, shaky breath, trying to calm her racing heart. She pulled at her hands, but the metal cuffs only tightened, digging painfully into her wrists, drawing blood. It was useless. She scanned her surroundings. No one. No sound but the wind rustling through the leaves. She screamed until her voice grew raw, but her cries were swallowed by the dense foliage, weak and hopeless. Then a spark. Her backpack. It was still on her back, wedged between her and the tree. She began to rub her back against the rough trunk, hoping to dislodge it. The coarse bark scratched her skin through her thin shirt, but she ignored the pain. After several minutes of agonizing effort, the backpack slid off her shoulders and fell to the ground. A small glimmer of hope, but it lay closed. She thought again. Her phone was in a mesh pocket on the side. Dropping to her knees, she tried to maneuver the backpack with her heels, a daunting task with her hands bound behind her back. It took several tries, sweat beading on her forehead, and she almost gave up. But then it worked. The backpack turned. She saw her blue phone, nestled in the mesh pocket. Now for the hardest part. Handcuffed behind her, how could she use it? She lay on her side, twisting her body until her joints popped. She stretched the fingertips of her right hand as far as she could toward the phone, just a few more centimeters. Please, please, she whispered through clenched teeth. Finally, after immense effort, her fingertips brushed the home button. The screen lit up. She remembered her voice-calling feature. It was her only hope. With all her remaining strength, she shouted, her voice hoarse and trembling with tension and exhaustion, "Hey Siri, call my husband." A suffocating silence followed. Her heart stopped. Was it working? Was the battery charged enough? Then she heard the familiar mechanical voice, a sound that had never sounded so sweet, echoing. "Calling my husband." The chief's fury unleashed. Approximately 15 miles away, at Northwood Police Department headquarters, Chief David Jones presided over a tense quarterly budget meeting with his captains. A tall, burly African-American man, 42, his stern, even-handed demeanor had propelled him through the ranks. He was dedicated to reforming the department and rebuilding community trust, a challenging task, especially against the implicit resistance of old guard officers like Granger. As the patrol captain droned on about dry numbers, David's personal phone, resting on the conference table, vibrated. The screen flashed with the words and heart emoji he'd assigned to his wife, "My Bella Redheart." He glanced at it, frowned slightly, and pressed the reject button. Bella knew his schedule. She would never call at this hour unless it was truly urgent. But immediately, the phone vibrated again. Still My Bella Redheart. A cold current of unease snaked down David's spine. Something was wrong. He stood abruptly, cutting off the captain mid-sentence. "Excuse me, gentlemen. Give me a moment." He walked briskly into the deserted hallway and answered, trying to keep his voice casual. "Bella, are you okay? I'm in a meeting." On the other end, it wasn't his wife's usual cheerful voice. It was a ragged, choked gasp, a panicked whisper. barely audible. David, I'm at Redwood Creek, near the Northern Trail. I'm handcuffed to a tree. 2 of your officers, Granger and Parrish, they did this. David Jones's world stopped. His wife's words were shards of glass stabbing into his brain. Asterisk handcuffed to a tree. Granger and Parrish. His 2 officers. Asterisk anger and fear surged through him, a primal fury he had never known. The composure of a chief vanished, replaced by the raw panic of a husband. He didn't waste a second. He stormed back into the conference room, where everyone stared at him in confusion. He slammed his hand on the table, sending paper scattering. Meeting over, all team leaders returned to the command room immediately. He rushed to the central control room, his voice booming over the intercom, steely and authoritative, startling the entire staff. Operator, emergency alert. Locate the GPS of this phone number immediately. Mobilize full SWAT team. Location, Redwood. Meanwhile, Granger and Parrish were leisurely driving out of the park. Granger whistled a lopsided tune, pleased with a joke, feeling he taught an immigrant a lesson. Parrish sat silently, racked with guilt and fear. Suddenly, the radio in their patrol car crackled with the chief's enraged voice. They heard the park's name. They heard the description of a woman being attacked. And then they heard the fatal phrase that sealed their fate. The chief's wife. Parrish went deathly white. He turned to Granger, his voice shaking, stammering. Granger, no, it can't be that woman. She said her husband was, and the name, Rossie Jones. Jones. God Jones. Granger stiffened, the smirk frozen on his lips. He remembered Bella's words, so contemptuously dismissed. He remembered the double name she had given him. He hadn't believed it. Racial prejudice had blinded him. He simply couldn't conceive of Chief Jones, a black man, having a white wife with Italian features. The thought was too complex for his simple, hateful mind. No, it can't be, he muttered, desperately clinging to denial. A coincidence? It has to be a stupid coincidence. But it was too late for denial. Right in front of them, at the highway turnoff, 3 black SUVs from the task force screeched to a halt, lights flashing, sirens blaring, completely blocking their exit. The lead vehicle's door swung open. Chief David Jones stepped out, his face no longer that of a calm leader, but a husband on the precipice of primal rage. David marched directly toward Granger and Parrish's car, his hand on the gun at his side. His voice roared, echoing through the woods, a guttural sound of pain and anger. Get out of the car. Hands on your head, now. Granger and Parrish shakily exited the car, hands raised like caught criminals. David stepped forward, stopping directly in front of Granger, his eyes burning into the officer. Where's my wife? He demanded, his voice low and menacing, each word a hammer blow. Granger stammered, trying to conjure a pathetic excuse in his panic. Sir, it was just a joke, sir. A misunderstanding. We were going back to release her. Really? Answer my question. David roared, his shout making both cops jump. Where is she? Parrish, utterly terrified, could no longer hold it in. He burst into tears, pointing a trembling finger toward the woods they had just left. There, by the big oak tree near the stream. That was all David needed. He turned to the Special Forces officers, who looked at his 2 colleagues with utter disdain. Cuff them. Take their weapons, their badges. Take them to the station. Keep them in separate cells. Don't let them talk to anyone. Then, with a small team, he plunged into the woods in the direction Parrish had indicated. His heart pounded in his chest. Bella, it's me. Each second felt like an eternity. Finally, they found her. Bella was still handcuffed to the tree, looking small and exhausted, her clothes dirty, her wrists bloody, but her eyes lit up when she saw her husband. The moment David produced a key, released the cold handcuffs from his wife's wrists, and held her close was an image of release, of love, of an unspoken oath of justice. He knelt, held her, murmuring apologies and comforts, his anger momentarily giving way to profound relief and infinite sorrow. A new chapter. After ensuring Bella was cared for by paramedics and safely returned home, David returned to the police station, his face a mask of stone. He headed straight down to the holding area where Granger and Parrish were held separately. He stood before Granger's cell, looking through the bars at his wife's tormentor. Granger cowered under his gaze. "Phil Granger, Kevin Parrish," David said, his voice cold and devoid of emotion. "You are both hereby suspended without pay. You face a criminal investigation for kidnapping, third-degree assault, abuse of power, violation of civil rights, and gross violation of your oath of office. You have a right to remain silent, and for God's sake, I advise you to do so." The fallout was swift and devastating, a hurricane unleashed. With Isabella's irrefutable testimony, GPS data from the patrol car on her phone, and Parrish's tearful confession, Granger and Parrish had no defense. They were dishonorably discharged from the Northwood Police Department. Faced with severe criminal charges, they were sentenced to years in prison. Their careers, their lives, and their freedoms were utterly destroyed by a cruel and stupid prank, an act born of laziness, prejudice, and the corrosive corruption of power. The incident ignited a media firestorm in Northwood. Police Chief David Jones faced one of the biggest crises of his career. But rather than attempting to cover up or downplaying the incident, he chose complete transparency. He held a press conference, publicly condemning the officers' actions, calling them a disgrace to the department and traitors to the public trust. He pledged to vigorously root out similar bad apples within his force. To protect her privacy, he did not identify his wife, stating only that the victim was a member of my family, a citizen they were sworn to protect. David Jones's decisive and forthright action ironically cemented his status as a strong, fair, and uncompromising leader. It sent a clear, unshakable message to the entire police department and the community. No one, not even those in uniform, is above the law. A few months later, Bella unveiled her first solo art show, aptly titled On the Punishment for Officer Granger and Officer Parrish. The punishment described for Officers Granger and Parrish, dishonorable discharge and years in prison, is presented as severe and comprehensive. Within the context of the story, it certainly seems intended as a powerful deterrent. Their careers, lives, and freedoms were completely destroyed, indicating a significant loss for their actions. Whether it's enough of a deterrent in a broader societal sense is a complex question, as it depends on many factors, including how such cases are perceived, the prevalence of similar misconduct, and systemic issues within law enforcement. However, in this narrative, the consequences are swift and absolute, leaving no ambiguity about the gravity of their crimes. As Chief David Jones, would I have handled this crisis so publicly or more quietly? Based on the outcome of the story, Chief David Jones's decision to handle the crisis completely publicly with transparency proved to be the more effective and beneficial approach, both for the department and for his own standing as a leader. Asterisk public handling benefits. Asterisk rebuilding trust. In a real-world scenario, a public admission of wrongdoing and decisive action can rebuild trust with the community. Trying to cover up or quietly resolve such a serious incident would likely lead to rumors, media leaks, and a deeper erosion of public confidence in the police department. Asterisk internal accountability. A public stance sends a clear, unambiguous message to all officers within the department. Misconduct will not be tolerated, regardless of rank or seniority. This can foster a culture of accountability and deter future abuses of power. Asterisk leadership reinforcement. By facing the crisis head-on, Chief Jones ironically cemented his status as a strong, fair, and uncompromising leader. This type of decisive action can enhance respect for his leadership, both internally and externally. Asterisk justice of the victim. Publicly condemning the officer's actions provides a measure of public validation for the victim and acknowledges the severity of the injustice committed against her. Asterisk quiet handling risks. Asterisk erosion of trust. A quiet approach can be perceived as a cover-up, leading to public outrage, protests, and a significant loss of trust in the police department's integrity. Asterisk internal resentment. Officers who believe in upholding the law might become demoralized or resentful if they perceive a lack of transparency or accountability for serious misconduct within their ranks. Asterisk damage to reputation. The department's reputation could suffer long-term damage if the public believes it protects its own rather than upholding justice. Given the severity of the officer's actions, kidnapping, assault, civil rights violations, a public and transparent response would generally be advisable to maintain public trust and reinforce the integrity of the police department, even if it creates a temporary media storm. The story explicitly highlights how his public condemnation strengthened his position, making a strong case for transparency in such situations.